Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank and Chase Commercial Term Lending, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey-Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
Astoria, soda jerk, jewelry business, seal test milkman, laborer, Germany, the military, comes back, gotta find another job, gets into the housekeeping business. And who at the age of 52 says, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna open up a cleaning business? And it's not a cleaning business. It's a major cleaning business in New York. I have the legendary Joe Collins today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
So you were telling me about Grandpa. Your grandpa was a very interesting character, right? He was the Grand Marshal of the parade in 1917.
1970, the big parade, the one in Manhattan,
The big parade, but what happened?
It was called off because they had all the bad weather. And for the first time, they were having all the Boy Scouts and the schools marching, and they were afraid of the kids getting sick,
Now, you told me Grandpa, according to your mom and dad,
Yeah.
Grandpa had a livery business.
Yeah, he was a big horseman, and he had a livery business near the Hotel Lexington. And then in later years, he converted that to a garage. I think it was the first one that, because I guess a lot of big shots lived in a Hotel Lexington. Their chauffeurs hung out there.
Right, and so the cars were there. But you also said that Grandpa was very close with, let's say, Tammany Hall.
Yeah, he kind of, the whole Irish thing,
the Irish group over there.
Yeah. I guess they stuck together,
So tell me about Dad. Where was Dad born? Your father, you told me,
he was
born in
here.
1902, something like that.
Yeah, 1902. In Manhattan. They lived in Manhattan. My mother as well.
Your dad was doing what during that time?
He worked for the government. He was with customs at the airport for a while, and then he primarily went to the post office, and his whole working career.
Right, and Mom worked more in the...
Well, she didn't work for a while, but we fell on hard times and stuff, and she did what she had to do. She went to work in a dry cleaners, and then she worked up until she was 70. She died at 72.
But you said she had worked until she was
Yeah,
70.
she was like a bookkeeper and stuff for a Christmas decorations firm.
So you have 2 sisters?
2 sisters.
So tell me about your sisters.
Well,
One even became a sister.
Yeah, my sister became a sister. Yeah, she went into the convent, and she went to Bishop McDonald, which is Catholic high school, and so on. And when she finished, she wanted to go into the convent. And my father said, "Look, I'd like you to go out in the world for a year." And he got her a job at Abercrombie, which was a great thing for me because every payday she brought me something, so.
That was a good thing.
But the year was up, and she wanted to go, and she went with our blessing, my mother and father's blessing, and.
So that's one sister, and your other sister?
My other sister, she went to St. Joseph's Commercial, another Catholic high school, and she worked at Equitable when it was Equitable, and she worked there for a long time, and then she got married, and she had 3 children. Her oldest boy, Johnny, was my godchild. He was killed in an automobile accident, and she took it very hard, needless to say. My sister, the nun, she used to finish school in Hewlett, Long Island, and I had gotten her a car, and she used to drive down
To visit the other sister.
Philadelphia every day. She would drive down after school, drive home that night, the next day, drive down again. She did that every day, so.
So you grew up in Queens, right? You grew
Queens,
up
yeah.
in Astoria,
In Astoria,
Astoria section of Queens, and you went to you went to parochial public school, right? Originally?
Yes, parochial grammar school.
Grammar
yeah.
school. And at that time, you had a couple of jobs that we were talking about. You had a job.
Quite a few,
Soda jerk?
Yeah, Well,
make lime Rickies?
I started off egg creams with
Egg
the big
creams
thing, then,
with the-
But, yeah, I did that, and I worked in a grocery store. I worked in a butcher.
Butcher,
I worked in a
cleaning up.
costume jewelry place,
pouring the metal.
melted metal into the molds and stuff, and
But you even played hockey. We got a picture of you.
Yeah.
You played
Roller hockey.
You played roller hockey.
Played roller hockey.
You made a goalie outfit.
Well, there was a fella, Sal Messina, who lived on the same street, and we used to play in the street, roller skates, and Sal, his first set of goalie pads, we stole a couple of throw rugs from the apartment house.
No, you didn't steal.
We borrowed them.
You borrowed them, okay.
And then we folded them over and put slits, and with the skate straps, that was his first set of goalie pads.
So
He went on to play. He was like 3rd string for the Rangers for a while, and he was picked for the Olympics, and then he wound up doing a lot of announcing, and he had a nickname, Red Light Sal, and...
So after public school, your mother and father said, we got to send our son to Brooklyn? I mean, this was difficult.
Well, my mother actually came down, and I'll never forget her name, Sister William Agnes was my 8th grade teacher. And as I mentioned, my sister had gone to Bishop McDonald, and my mother mentioned to her that they'd like me to go to Bishop Lachlan, which was the boys' version of it. And I was not thrilled about it, but Sister William Agnes, she kind of laughed and said to my mother, Mrs. Collins, you're kidding yourself. There's no way that he would make Bishop Lachlan.
And so you made it.
I made it, and I went there.
But then you changed, and you said it was too far of a schlep. And
well,
you ended up
Brooklyn,
in
and I didn't want to go. And at that time, we had peg pants and stuff, and I would go, and they'd send me home from Brooklyn to change my pants. Well, needless to say, I'd come home, and I wouldn't go back, So
you finished at Long Island.
Yeah, I went to Long Island City High, yeah.
So you graduated Long Island City High, and what do? Because before you pushed up your draft, okay? I know you pushed up.
Well, I went to work in the milk company. I had a friend of mine.
Right. So you had a friend who was the shop steward.
His father was a shop steward for Seal Test Foods, and we used to pull out of the barn on Van Wyck near Van Wyck.
And you had the shift at 1 o'clock at the.
Yeah, you
the
would
morning?
go. You delivered milk to the doors. You would go and you'd be roaming around these neighborhoods. First, you had to go in and load your truck, and then at that time it was all bottles. You shoveled ice on it to keep it. The trucks weren't refrigerated or anything. And you would roam around at 1, 2 in the morning delivering milk with the milk bottles and stuff. And at that time there was the draft. I was 18 when I started there. The draft was taking guys 24, 25, they were calling them. Now, the job I had was a union job. They had to hold a job for me. So I said, you know, I'm low man on the totem pole here. I'm bouncing all over the place. I might as well push up my draft. So I did. I pushed up my draft at the age of 20 and went into the service for 2 years.
Right. So, and those 2 years, you know, after basic and advanced training, your advanced training was in what?
It was in Colorado Springs,
right.
Yeah, Fort Carson, I think. Then I went to Mannheim, Germany, you know. And
right. Now, in Mannheim, Germany, when you were growing up, you met this young lady from Astoria who happened to be a German descendant.
Yes.
And she accidentally ended up in Mannheim, Germany when you were there, right?
Well, actually, it went a little later. You know, after Mannheim, I was transferred to Kaiserslautern. My orders, it said ARC. I said, what are they transferring me to, the American Red Cross or what? But it was an air reconnaissance company. And I went there, and as I said, we grew up on the same street. 6 years old, childhood sweethearts, this, that, you know. High school, she went her way, I went my way. But she planned a trip. Her father passed away when she was quite young. And her mother used to work at Loft Candy down at near Queens Plaza there. And she was coming on a trip to Germany with her mother, and she ran into my mother on the street.
And they said,
got my address, wrote to me, and
right. So
I made arrangements when she came to go down. I thought for a quick visit, but
you finish the military, you come back. You're still not married. You a little while back. You go back to SEAL test because you had the seniority.
yeah,
And you also enrolled at night at Baruch College,
Yes.
City College in New York. And the milk job didn't work out well because it was tough. And then you became a laborer working.
yeah. I left the milk company, I guess, probably the early part of '64.
Right, pretty close to the time when you got married.
Yeah. And I had another friend that got me a job as a laborer for the wire lathers. And, you know, I lugged steel, the black iron that the lathers would tie and stuff. And I did that. And Peggy, my wife, and I, we got married in November. We moved into the same street we grew up on, but now in the apartment house. 4-story walk-up. We were paying $68 a month rent.
And you had the tar on the...
And we would go up and with my son, and we would had a blow-up pool that he would go in, and we called it Tar Beach.
And then you had an opportunity to get involved with the...
Well, we got married in November. I got laid off in January. My wife had worked for Broadway Maintenance that was down here at Queens Plaza. Not here, but in Queens there. Well, Broadway Maintenance used to do all the city lighting and stuff like that, so they were pretty well connected. And somebody that worked there who put me in touch with this fellow, Chris Peters, who was in the cleaning business.
Right. Now, Chris Peters...
That's not Peter Callahan.
No. Chris Peters happened to have... there was Alcoa, the Aluminum Company of America. had built what today is called Lincoln Towers.
It was
On the west side.
Lincoln Towers on the west
Right,
side.
on
There
Lincoln
were
Towers.
eight apartment buildings, and I think now with Trump got involved.
So they converted that. Marty Raines did the conversion later on to co-ops. But you get a job at Lincoln Towers, basically in the
package room.
In the package rooms.
I took the job for $100 a week, 12 hours a day.
And the package rooms were called housekeeping services?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, where you had the packages over there, where you pick up the dry cleaning.
Yeah, we would take in dry cleaning and laundry and sell the cleaning services, the window cleaning, carpet shampooing and stuff, you know. So we did that, and Chris Peters had to get back. He had a commercial company as well, you know, Mickey Mouse, you know, kind of small potatoes
but
and stuff.
Then you were able to get into Dorchester Towers. Dorchester Towers was a brand new building.
Yes, on Amsterdam Avenue.
Right, pretty close to
Lincoln Towers.
The Lincoln Towers. And you were able to figure out a way that you could do the laundry, the dry cleaning, within Dorchester Towers.
There was a fella, I forget his name, that he had a dry cleaning store in Dorchester Towers, dry cleaning and laundry. And he got it for his son. Well, his son wasn't too anxious to work and everything, so he got in touch with me. He wanted to hire me as a manager to manage the store. And I suggested to him, how about taking on a partner that could bring in X number of dollars in volume.
You had the 9 apartment houses over there,
you know, so we, instead of sending the laundry to somebody else and the dry cleaning, we'd do it in Dorchester. I arranged a meeting with him and Chris Peters, and we bought him out.
And you took over the cleaning, so now you're working over there at housekeeping services, or whatever term we call the business. And you're also you're working. You're not an owner. You know.
No.
You're just a working guy.
Yeah, not by
care
far.
Of, you know, okay. And over here, you know, you're involved with the cleaning, with the package room, and the other things.
Yeah.
So, subsequently, okay. Fast forward over here, Chris Peters wasn't the best businessman. Lots of things happened over there. And one night, you're having dinner at Sal Anthony's, right?
Yes.
With a buddy of yours who
I grew up with in Astoria.
How long did you know your buddy?
Well, I was 5 years older than him, but I guess, you know, at that time the drinking age was 18. So once the age difference went away, once the 18-year-old could come into the bar and drink with the
23-year-old.
Yeah, you know.
So your buddy.
So we became very, very friendly, and
so
he
one
was
night,
successful. He
was in the publishing business, right?
CPA, and he struggled. He bought a magazine company, and he did very well, you know, and they bought and sold magazines.
So what happens? You're having dinner with you, and you were working a little bit at that time on commercial.
Well, Chris Peters had gone bankrupt. We were bought by a Pritchard, British company. Then the British company was taken over by somebody else, and the son, Peter Pritchard, went out on his own. And I went to work for him and brought people that are still with me now. I brought them there, you know, and it was tough, you know, getting any nickel out of him. You know,
and you're still working as an employee.
Yeah, you know, and
so you have dinner with your buddy, and what happens? He says,
well, he says to me, "What the heck's the matter with you? You got a chip on your shoulder?" I says, that SOB. I said, I'm going to have to go to the mat with him for every nickel. So he says to me, "Joe, you've been around, so why don't you do your own thing?"
I'm 52 years of age.
Yeah. I said, "Peter, take scratch." So he says, "What could it take?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't buy anything because you don't know what you're buying. Buy some guy's cleaning business and find out that his father-in-law owns all the buildings he's cleaning or something, you know. So I said I would start my own company, and so there were 7 of us originally, and how much do you need to live? How much does this guy need? How much does that guy? And so he come up, he says to me, Joe, $1.5 million should do it. I said, Pete, $1.5 million was always a nice round number. So we did the deal. We shook hands, no lawyers.
What did your wife say when you told her when you went home that night? Can we repeat it on TV?
No, my wife has always been very, very supportive.
Okay,
of me,
so,
you know,
so it's 1987.
I had a lot of friends telling me I was out of my mind, you know, at 52, you know, but
Right. So, you know, it's 87.
88.
88. And Joe Collins, who really wasn't, you know, you were in housekeeping services, you really weren't in commercial cleaning.
No, but I had gotten to know quite a few of the
Right.
people in it, you know. And
So you go out there, and you were telling me you would do anything to get a piece of
Yep.
business. And one of the worst jobs around was to clean the side of the elevator pits.
Well, it was the Durst organization that owned the building, and at the time they had a contract, another contractor doing the cleaning of the buildings. I had a friend that I had know that worked for them, and he came to me and he says, Joe, listen, I got a job for you, but I don't know. He says, can you clean the elevator shafts, you know? So I said, Jeff, I'll clean anything, you know. So we did, and he had a tough old Irish bird, was a manager of the building, you know, and we went, rode the top of the elevator car, vacuuming the walls and stuff like that, and I think I gave him a price of $2,500, and he says to me, bill me $5,000 because I'm going to charge it back to the cleaner that had the contract because he's supposed to do it. So at any rate, we did, and I went and I saw the manager was Tom Kitson, tough old Irish bird, and I said, Mr. Kitson, would you like to go look and see what we did? He said, I already did. He says, just keep doing what you're doing, you know.
But I mean, from nothing in 1988, scratch. I mean, you've gone up and built an organization that has the contract for the Barclays Center, do all the work for Forest City Ratner.
Pretty much.
You know, City University, where we're taping. You know,
Yeah,
we had to check the floors, you know, if the space looked good over here.
Yeah.
And then you got this small little institution, the New York University.
Yeah, NYU, yeah.
You know.
They just recently extended our contract for 10 years.
And then you said that one of your relatives worked at Equitable? Even
Oh, it wasn't a relative.
it was a friend.
Well, my sister worked
Your sister
there.
worked
but,
at Equitable. You took
But
care
there
of
was a
Equitable?
guy that actually, at one time, I guess my sister worked for him, you know. Bill McCaffrey, he has since passed away, but I used to spend a lot of time there when I worked with Chris Peters. You know, I was there because we used to do the extra. They did the cleaning in-house.
Yeah, so you did the extras.
They did it. We did the extras, and a lot of people thought I worked for Equitable, you know. But then we went, and he.
So today, what is CBS? I mean, even though you try to take another name like CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting Station. How many people work for CBS?
We have at about 2,800 people, you know, working for us. You know,
and something that you've done, because you learned this probably from your mom and dad and your wife, is that you've been really always helpful and charitable. You were involved with Telecare, with the God Squad,
yeah,
with Rabbi Gelman and
Tom Hartman, yeah,
Tom Hartman. You've been involved with numerous charitable organizations,
outreach projects. That's adolescent drug and alcohol abuse. The Sisters of St. Joseph, I've continued to do things with them and for them, you know, and
So tell me a little bit about the family. You've been married to this woman. You just celebrated your 50th anniversary.
50th wedding
We have some nice
anniversary.
pictures, you know, that you used on
Yeah, it was
over
a
there.
total surprise. I don't know how my son and his wife did it.
Right, and then you have one son. Your son's name is,
Kenneth,
and his wife's name?
Keeley, and I have one grandson.
We have that, and you have your grandson.
Graduated from Chaminade, and
And where's he want to go to school?
he's been accepted at Richmond.
Right, which is a great school. Now, you,
Yeah.
you said to me, you've been a fisherman in your life. You know,
Well,
like
I used
big
to
bass
fish a little bit. Well, we used to going back when I worked for Chris Peters and stuff. I tried it a couple of times on our own. We would get a party boat. We would get a bus, take us out to Montauk Thursday night. Stop at the Lobster Inn in Southampton for dinner, then go on to Montauk, then get up in the morning and go fishing on this party boat. And that was nice. And then I go up to a place called Indian Lake in the Adirondacks in August, and I have a little 17-foot runabout.
So for the kid, you know, who made the egg creams, okay, and put the newspaper together,
Yeah.
and, you know, worked at Seal Test, who was the laborer, who tried hard, who said at 52, I'm going to go into this. I'm really happy to meet Joe Collins, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Mike. It was a pleasure.